when aliens cried for aid, humanity's marines answered through the smoke. The city of Kerith had burned for 3 cycles. Once, its crystalline towers had reached toward the stars, glistening in the light of 3 suns. Now they were jagged teeth of blackened glass, spearing through plumes of choking smoke. The enemy was efficient, every shelter reduced to rubble, every voice silenced beneath falling stone. The Kerithi were not warriors. Their culture had no concept of armies, only scholars, builders, and singers. When the predators came, all the Kerithi could do was send a signal, a desperate broadcast cast blindly into the void. Help us, anyone, please. They never expected an answer. But the universe had strange laws, and one of them was this: when the helpless cried, humans listened. The sky split on the 4th cycle. Fire rained down, but it was not the enemy this time. Dropships fell from orbit, tearing through smoke and ash, their hulls scorched by re-entry. The ground shook as they landed, metal teeth biting into broken streets. And then they emerged. Figures in armor, faceless behind black visors, weapons cradled in arms built for war. Their boots struck the ground with the weight of inevitability. They moved in lines, disciplined, efficient, beasts of iron and blood. To the Kerithi, they looked like monsters. To the invaders, they were nightmares given form. United Earth Marines, a voice boomed through the translator net. This world called for aid, we answer. The enemy thought the humans were few. They thought the armored strangers could be crushed as they had crushed the Kerithi. They were wrong. The first clash was thunder. Human rifles barked lightning, and where the bolts struck, alien predators folded into the dust. The Kerithi huddled in ruined halls and watched through the smoke as humanity fought not with hesitation, but with fury. Where the enemy had stalked the streets like predators, the humans became storms, smoke swirling, fire trailing their advance, their battle cries echoing like drums of war. The invaders, who had sneered at the desperate signal sent into the stars, began to falter. For the first time in cycles, they bled. And the Kerithi learned a truth whispered across 1,000 alien civilizations. Humanity does not answer every call, but when they do, the galaxy itself shifts. Hours bled into days. The Marines did not retreat. They fought in the smoke, in the fire, in the darkness where no other species dared to tread. They hauled survivors from collapsed shelters, shielding them with armored bodies. They dragged the wounded from the enemy's claws and returned them with gentle hands. When the predators fell back at last, abandoning the city they had thought conquered, the Kerithi saw the humans clearly for the first time. Their armor was scorched, their visors cracked. Beneath them were faces drawn with exhaustion, but still burning with a terrible light. The commander removed her helmet and looked upon the frightened survivors. Her voice was rough, but steady. You called, we came. That's what we do. In the centuries to come, the Kerithi would rebuild. They would raise towers of crystal again, stronger than before. And at the heart of the city, a monument stood tall, a sculpture of armored figures stepping from fire and smoke. The inscription read, in both tongues, when we cried for aid, humanity came. And across the stars, every race who whispered of Deathworlders remembered this tale, not of monsters, not of predators, but of Marines who walked through fire to answer a call no one else would. Do you want me to expand this into a longer multi-part battle narrative, like a short novel chapter, or keep it as a self-contained short story? Got it. Let's continue the story from where we left off, carrying the momentum forward into the next chapter. Part 2, Through Ash and Steel. The smoke hadn't cleared when the Marines advanced deeper into Kerith. The predators, scaled things with bladed limbs and venomous mandibles, were regrouping, howling commands across guttural frequencies. Their retreat had not been panic. It had been strategy. Captain Imani Reyes knew the pattern. She'd fought raiders like this on colony moons before: hit hard, fall back, lure the defenders into narrow avenues where the traps lay waiting. Don't chase them blind, she growled into calms. Scouts, sweep rooftops, drones up, civilians behind second line. Her orders snapped like steel. The Marines obeyed without hesitation. To the Kerithi watching, it was like watching a machine made of living beings, every soldier a gear turning in sync with the others. But the enemy was clever. From the wreckage of a collapsed tower came a screech that rattled crystal and bone alike. Shapes poured from the shadows. Dozens, no, Hundreds of the predators, rushing down the streets with claws that sparked against the stone. The Karithi screamed. Some fell to their knees, believing this the end. And then the Marines fired. The roar of human weapons drowned out every cry. Plasma bolts slammed into armored hides, shredding them before they could close the distance. Frag rounds erupted in the streets, sending shockwaves through ash and rubble. Yet still the predators surged. Frontline brace, Reyes barked. Shields up. Marines slammed heavy projectors into the ground. Walls of hard light flared alive, catching the first wave like an ocean crashing against cliffs. Claws screeched against energy fields as the predators slammed into them. Behind the barrier, Marines advanced in rhythm. Step, fire, reload, step again. To the Karithi, it was unthinkable. Their enemies had seemed invincible, yet here were humans, standing in smoke and fire, refusing to yield a single step. When the last predator body hit the ground, silence fell over the ruins. The streets ran with ichor that steamed where it touched broken crystal. The Karithi emerged slowly from hiding places, eyes wide. They looked upon humanity's warriors with awe, with fear, and with a fragile, dawning hope. One of the youngest survivors, his crystalline skin cracked with ash, whispered in disbelief, "They fight like they were born for this." Captain Reyes heard him. She met his gaze through the smoke, her helmet clipped at her side, sweat running down her brow. "We weren't born for it," she said softly. "We just learned no one else would fight for us, so we became the kind of monsters that stand between the helpless and the dark." Her words settled heavy in the air. The Karithi bowed their heads, not in fear but in reverence. Far above, enemy warships shifted in orbit, their commanders snarling as they realized the simple truth. Their prey had sent a call into the stars, and humanity had answered. Perfect, let's push the story forward. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 3, Shadows on the Horizon. The war room lights flickered as the holomap updated. Dozens of crimson signals blinked into existence at the edge of the Sol system. Then hundreds, then thousands. The Karth reinforcements had arrived. Each contact pulsed with energy readings dwarfing the earlier fleet. Planet crackers, swarm carriers, annihilation hives, the full weight of a species that had slaughtered empires. The bunker fell silent, every officer staring in horror. Earth was a candle before a storm. "God help us," one whispered. Reyes turned toward Captain Ward. "Tell me you have a plan." Ward's eyes narrowed, studying the holomap with cold precision. "This isn't a battle Earth can win head-on. Not yet, but the Karth have made a mistake." He tapped a point in the projection, their fleet's rear line. "They're overconfident. They think humanity's broken. They've exposed their supply vessels and comm relays. Take those out. The swarm loses coordination. The bigger the beast, the harder it falls when you cut the nerves." Reyes frowned. "That would mean striking into their formation. We don't have the ships." Ward's crew exchanged knowing glances. Then one of them, a woman with half her face marked by silver lattice, stepped forward. "You have us," she said. Her voice was metallic, layered, like two people speaking in unison. The Nightborn was not idle in exile. She carries weapons Earth has never dreamed of. On cue, the holomap shifted, displaying the Dreadnought's full arsenal. Planet-shear cannons, void torpedoes that bent space around their targets. Swarms of drones like living shadows. Humanity's lost ship was no longer just a dreadnought. It was a weapon forged in a nightmare crucible. Reyes leaned in, voice hard. "If we commit you to this, you're not coming back." Ward allowed himself a thin smile. "Admiral, we didn't come back to live. We came back to finish the fight." Far above, the Nightborn powered its engines. The ship trembled as systems came online, alien energies bleeding into human designs. Across Earth, civilians looked up at the sky, watching the black silhouette rise like an avenging phantom. Children pointed, soldiers saluted, survivors whispered prayers. Because for the first time in days, there was hope. And when the Nightborn ignited its spinal cannon, preparing to dive into the Karth Armada alone, a single message broadcast across all human channels. Humanity does not kneel, not today, not ever. Would you like the next chapter to dive into the Nightborn's assault against the Karth Armada, a big space battle? HFY style. Or peel back the mystery of what the ship encountered beyond known space that gave it these impossible weapons? Alright, let's go full HFY space battle. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 4, The Spear in the Dark. The Nightborne surged into the void like a predator unleashed. Its engines burned with a blue so deep it seemed to devour the stars themselves. The Karth noticed immediately. Thousands of ships shifted, their formations tightening, weapons pivoting. A tide of annihilation turned toward one single vessel. Contact in 60 seconds, Ward's helmsman reported, voice steady despite the swarm ahead. Ward stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Load void torpedoes, target their command relays. Aye, Captain. The first Karth volley hit, a storm of plasma and antimatter, enough to erase fleets, but the Nightborne did not fall. Her hull shimmered, bending reality itself. Shots that should have struck vanished into nothingness, swallowed whole by distortions that rippled across the blackened plating. Return fire, Ward ordered. The void torpedoes launched, vanishing into folds of space. A heartbeat later, explosions blossomed inside Karth cruisers, tearing them apart from within. The alien fleet recoiled in shock as their rear line buckled. Then the spinal cannon fired. A beam of impossible energy cut across kilometers, slicing through battleships like tissue. The blast left behind a wound in space itself, a scar that twisted light and dragged wreckage into its depths. The crew did not cheer. They moved like machines, efficient and ruthless. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver honed by centuries of survival beyond charted stars. The Karth responded with fury. Warforms swarmed, chittering masses of bioships flooding forward. They latched onto the Nightborne's hull, clawing, tearing. Deploy the swarm, Ward said calmly. From hidden bays, the Nightborne unleashed her own brood. Drones poured out like shadows, razor-winged constructs of alien alloy and human design. They shredded through the attackers, dismembering living ships with surgical precision. On Earth, civilians watched the battle play out across intercepted feeds. They saw their lost ship carving a path through an armada that had crushed entire civilizations. They saw the impossible and believed. For the first time in history, the Karth faltered. But Ward knew the truth. This was not victory. This was only the opening strike. He leaned over the tactical map, eyes fixed on the burning swarm ahead. Bring us deeper, he ordered, right into the heart of them. If the Karth want humanity broken, let them choke on our defiance. The Nightborne plunged forward, one ship against a galaxy of monsters. And the galaxy blinked. Do you want me to make the next chapter the turning point where the Nightborne uncovers the true enemy behind the Karth? Or should we stay in the moment and ride along? Detailed battle sequence of the dreadnought tearing its way through the fleet? Alright, let's widen the lens now, showing how the rest of the galaxy reacts to what happened on Karth. Part 5, Whispers in the Stars. News traveled faster than ships. Before the embers of Karth had cooled, 100 listening posts across the galaxy had intercepted the signals. Predator warships destroyed. The flagship annihilated. A peaceful species saved. And at the heart of every retelling was the same terrifying truth. It was the humans. In the Council of 11 Worlds, the Chancellor of the Valari shifted uneasily. His species had survived for millennia by bending before stronger predators. But now whispers spread that perhaps there was something far worse than predators in the void. Deathworlders, one delegate hissed, voice trembling. They came through fire, through smoke. They boarded a predator flagship as though it were nothing. Another, more cunning, tilted her head. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. The predators have taken a dozen worlds this cycle alone. If these Terrans fight them, let them bleed on our behalf. But the council chamber was silent when one voice cut through. And when they are done with the predators, what will they do with us? No one answered. Far across the stars, in predator space, the news was received differently. Commanders snarled and tore at their subordinates, furious that a single Terran destroyer and a handful of Marines had shattered an entire fleet. For the first time in generations, they knew fear. Humans, the Overclaw spat, they are not prey, they are poison, spread too far, and they will rot the hunt itself. On Kareth, though, the perspective was different. Captain Reyes stood among the crystalline survivors as they rebuilt, stacking fragments of shattered towers into makeshift shelters. The Karithi no longer hid when shadows moved. They no longer trembled when the wind carried echoes of battle. They sang. The songs were no longer mourning, they were anthems. One elder, his voice fragile but clear, said to Reyes, "You did more than save us. You reminded us that we can fight, that even gentle hands can become strong when the dark comes." Reyes only nodded, adjusting her scarred armor. "That's the lesson humanity learned a long time ago. Maybe now, you won't have to learn it the hard way." But as she looked skyward, she knew the predators would return, stronger, smarter, in greater numbers. The galaxy had cried for aid once. Humanity had answered. And now? Now the galaxy was watching to see what the humans would do next. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next chapter to follow the predators preparing their counterstrike, or to shift into the formation of an alien-human alliance, with the Karithi as the first to stand beside humanity? Excellent, let's move into the next arc, where the predators prepare to strike back, and the first alliances begin to take shape. Part 6, The Gathering Storm. The predator homeworld of Gorka seethed with fury. In the great war caverns, where trophies of conquered species hung from iron chains, the Overclaws gathered, their voices thundered, echoing through stone like the beating of 100 war drums. "The humans have spat in our jaws," one snarled, his mandibles dripping venom. "They butchered a fleet, they burned a flagship, they think themselves hunters." "No," growled another, scarred from muzzle to chest, "they are carrion who learn to bite back, but if prey learns to bite, we tear out its teeth." Around the circle, hundreds of eyes gleamed red in the torchlight. A verdict was passed. The humans had not merely defeated a hunting fleet, they had humiliated it. And humiliation demanded vengeance. Within cycles, entire predator fleets were being reforged. Warforges bellowed smoke into the skies as new ships rose, bristling with weapons. The predators would not raid this time, they would invade. On Kareth, Captain Reyes received the intelligence brief from the UES. Resolute, orbital scans confirmed it, dozens of predator fleets mobilizing. She stood before the Karithi Council, their crystalline forms fractured but unbroken. "They're coming back," she said simply, "in force. If you want to survive, you won't survive as prey. You'll fight beside us." The chamber rippled with unease. The Karithi were not warriors, they had no armies, no weapons. Their hands had built towers, not tools of war. But one voice rose, clear, sharp, unwavering. The young survivor who had once whispered in awe of the Marines, his crystalline chest was still scarred from predator claws. "Teach us," he said. "If we cannot sing predators to silence, then let us learn to fight them. You answered our cry, now let us answer yours." The chamber trembled with silence, then with slow, rising assent. The Karithi, for the first time in their history, chose war. Far beyond, whispers spread again. Other species, watching from the shadows of neutrality, felt the ground shift. The Valari sent envoys. The Oran Collective began to debate military doctrine it had abandoned centuries ago. Even the reclusive Zell turned their eyes outward. For the galaxy had seen what happened when humans answered a single cry for help. And now more worlds wondered. If we cry out too, will they come for us as well? Above the fractured city, Reyes stood with her Marines, watching Karithi volunteers stumble through their first drills. They were clumsy, fragile, uncertain. But their eyes burned with something new. Resolve. Reyes muttered under her breath, almost to herself. So this is how alliances are born, through fire, through smoke. And behind her, the sky rumbled. Predator fleets were on the move. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next part to show the Predator's massive invasion of Kareth? An all-out war where humans and Karithi stand side by side? Or should we shift to the wider galactic perspective, showing alien powers debating whether to support or oppose humanity? Perfect, time to dive into the all-out war for Kareth, where humanity and the newly awakened Karithi face the Predator invasion. Part 7, The Second Burning of Kareth. The Predators came at dawn. The sky cracked open as their fleet tore free of hyperspace, blotting out the sun with a swarm of jagged silhouettes. Thousands of ships, more than had ever been committed to a single world. The Predators had not come to raid, nor to conquer, they had come to erase. On the ground, alarms wailed through the rebuilt districts of Kareth's capital. Marines rushed to defensive lines, armored boots hammering crystal streets. Karithi volunteers scrambled beside them, their crystalline bodies sheathed in improvised armor plates, their trembling hands clutching weapons human engineers had forged in the days since the last battle. For the first time in their history, the Karithi did not hide, they stood. Captain Reyes stood on a shattered balcony overlooking the defenses. Her visor reflected the burning horizon. "All units, this is ground lead," she said into comms. "The Predators are here. Hold the line. No matter what comes through that sky, hold." The first bombardments rained down. Crystal's towers shattered like glass under the storm of plasma fire. Streets erupted into molten rivers, but when the dust cleared, the Terran shields still stood, broad, glowing walls of hard light, interlocked across the defensive perimeter. Predator drop pods screamed downward, slamming into the earth. They cracked open, disgorging legions of scaled horrors, claws glinting, mandibles dripping. The Predators roared, and the humans answered with thunder. Marine lines erupted in fire. Heavy railguns tore through the first wave, bodies flung into the air in showers of black ichor. Karithi plasma rifles spat bolts of searing light, clumsy at first, but steady, bolstered by the rhythm of the Marines beside them. It was not perfect. The Predators were many, their claws tearing into shield walls, their bodies piling into trenches. Screams filled the air as defenders fell, human and Karithi alike. But the line held. Because for every Predator that leapt the barricades, 2 more were dragged down by Marines. For every moment of terror in Karithi eyes, there was a human hand steadying them, a human voice snarling through smoke. "Stand firm, stand with us." Hours bled into a day, then 2. The Predators pressed harder, their fleets hammering the shield lines without mercy. Yet the defenders did not break. On the 3rd day, something changed. The Karithi began to sing. At first it was just one voice, cracked, trembling, then another, then a dozen, rising in harmony even as plasma bolts seared overhead. Their crystalline throats wove a song that rolled across the battlefield, a sound of grief forged into defiance. The Predators faltered. For the first time in this war, they faced prey that sang back. And the humans fought harder, their rifles keeping rhythm with the song. High above, the UES, Resolute led a task force of Terran warships into the Predator fleet. Guns screamed, tearing open capital ships like paper, carving corridors of fire through the enemy. But even as the Predators fell, more came. Captain Reyes knew this wasn't just a battle for a planet, it was the spark of something greater. If Kareth held, the galaxy would see it. Prey and Predators no longer, worlds united, with humanity at their side. If Kareth fell, the Predators would prove that resistance was hopeless. And so Reyes raised her weapon, standing tall in the smoke and ash, her voice like iron as she called across comms. "Marines, Karithi, hold, the line does not break here, not today, not ever." And the world of Kareth burned again, but this time, it burned with defiance. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next chapter to cover the turning point of the battle, the moment the defenders either collapse or push the Predators back, or the galactic reaction in real time as other civilizations watch the war unfold? Alright, let's bring the story to the turning point of the war for Kareth. Part 8, The Line Holds. For 3 days and nights, Kareth bled. The Predators came in endless waves, their claws hammering against Terran shields, their bodies piling in grotesque heaps before the barricades. They had expected the defenders to break, to scatter into the ruins as prey always did. But the line still held. By the 4th day, The predators changed tactics. Massive siege beasts, armored in bone and steel, thundered from the drop pods. Their roars shook the crystal streets as they charged the defensive walls. The shields shuddered. Marines staggered. The barricades cracked. Fall back to secondary positions? One lieutenant barked over comms. Captain Reyes' reply was immediate, cold, and absolute. No retreat. Not one step. Hold the line. The beasts slammed into the shield wall, claws gouging through energy fields. Marines poured fire into them, but their hides were thick, their rage unrelenting. One broke through, bellowing, tearing Marines from the earth with sweeping talons. And then the Carithi moved. Crystalline figures, once fragile and afraid, now surged forward in squads. Plasma fire lanced from their rifles, concentrated and precise. They struck the beast's wounds where marine fire had already scarred it. The creature roared, staggering. A single Carithi, his body fractured and glowing faintly with inner light, leapt onto its back, jamming a plasma charge into the wound. The explosion tore the beast apart. The Carithi fell with it, his crystalline body shattering into fragments. But the line held. In orbit, the battle raged just as fiercely. The UES, Resolute, bled from half a dozen hull breaches, her guns burning white-hot. But she did not fall. Every Predator ship that tried to descend was met with fire, her rail batteries carving through their hulls like spears of light. Other Terran warships arrived in waves, drawn by the beacon of the fight. The Predators had come to exterminate one world. Now they found themselves locked against the iron of humanity's fleets. On the ground, exhaustion gnawed at every defender. Ammunition ran low, armor cracked, voices rasped. The Predators were unending, relentless. And then, silence. The next wave did not come. From the smoke-choked horizon, Predator horns sounded, a long, guttural note. The surviving attackers pulled back, dragging their wounded, leaving the battlefield littered with blackened corpses. Captain Reyes stared after them, visor reflecting the burning skyline. "They're not done," she muttered. "They're regrouping, waiting, testing us." But to the Carithi, the meaning was clear. For the first time in their history, the Predators had struck with all their fury. Excellent, time to shift the lens to the galactic stage, where everyone reacts to the impossible. Kareth held against the Predators. Part 9, Ripples Across the Stars. The news spread faster than light itself, riding the networks of every major civilization. The Predators had been beaten back. The world of Kareth still stood. Humanity had done it. In the Council of 11 Worlds, the chamber of glass and starlight was louder than it had been in centuries. Delegates shouted over one another. Crystalline voices, liquid tones, guttural growls all overlapping. "This is unprecedented," cried the Valari Chancellor. "No prey species has ever held once the Predators committed a fleet, let alone two. What manner of beings are these Terrans?" "They are dangerous," hissed the scaled envoy of the Thal. "If they can defeat the Predators, they can defeat us. Today they save Kareth. Tomorrow, they may decide to rule it." "But they didn't," countered the soft-voiced Neryl, her translucent form pulsing faintly. "They could have taken the world, claimed it as spoils. Instead, they stood, fought, and left it in Carithi hands. That is not conquest. That is something else." The chamber fell silent as an elder from the distant Orith leaned forward, his voice a rasp. "Do you not see? This is the fracture point. The Predators are no longer unchallenged. The balance has broken. We must choose, stand with the humans, or wait until they are gone, and hope the Predators do not come for us next." On Predator worlds, the reaction was blood and fury. The Overclaw slammed his talons into the stone table, cracking it. "The humans have made prey believe they can resist. This cannot be allowed. Every world that hears of this victory will whisper rebellion. Then we must burn not only the humans," another growled, "but every species that looks to them. We must make examples until the stars remember who hunts, and who flees." There was no dissent. Plans began to form, an extermination war, not against one world, but against all who might ally with the Terrans. Back on Kareth, Captain Reyes received encrypted transmissions, messages from distant worlds, tentative, cautious, but full of the same question. "Will you come if we call?" She didn't answer immediately. She stood at the edge of the rebuilt barricades, watching Karithi children play among the ruins where Marines once held the line. "Ma'am?" her lieutenant asked softly. "What do we tell them?" Reyes exhaled, her breath fogging in the cool air. She thought of humanity's history, wars fought not for conquest, but survival, and she thought of the Karithi, who had sung through the fire. "Tell them," she said at last, "that humanity doesn't ignore a cry for help. Not now. Not ever." The lieutenant nodded, sending the message. And just like that, the galaxy shifted. Worlds that had never dared resist began to dream of defiance. Predators who had never feared anything now tasted the bitterness of doubt. And in the shadows of the void, humanity prepared for what was coming next. Because now the predators would not come for one world. They would come for all of them. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next part to follow the Predators' full-scale war preparations, or show the first official alliance being forged between humanity and another alien race after Kareth? Perfect, now let's move into the first official alliance. The moment humanity's war on Kareth sparks a galactic shift. Part 10, The First Pact. The smoke of battle still clung to Kareth's air when the delegates arrived. They came in cautious ships, their hulls gleaming like jewels or scarred from long-forgotten wars. For centuries, they had hidden from the predators, bowing their heads, hoping to be overlooked. But now they stepped onto a world where prey had not only survived, but fought back. The Karithi had prepared a great hall in the ruins of their capital. Shattered crystal arches had been rebuilt just enough to stand, a symbol that they too could rise from devastation. At the center of the hall, Captain Imani Reyes stood in her battered armor, helmet clipped to her side. She looked out over the gathering of species, each wary, each uncertain. The Valari Chancellor spoke first, his voice sharp and quivering. "Terran, you have changed the balance. The predators will not forgive this. They will bring war on a scale even you cannot withstand. And when they do, will you stand alone, or do you seek allies?" Rhea's gaze swept the chamber. She saw the doubt in their eyes, the fear, but beneath it, something else. Hope. She raised her voice so that it carried to every corner of the hall. "Humanity didn't come here for conquest. We came because someone cried for help, and no one else would answer. That's who we are. That's what we do." She let the words settle before continuing. "The predators aren't gods. They aren't unbreakable. You saw it here. They can bleed. They can lose. But only if we stand together. Alone, they will pick you off one by one. Together," she tapped the scorched chest plate of her armor. "Together, we hold the line." The hall rippled with unease. Then, slowly, the Karithi elder rose. His crystalline body still bore fractures from the invasion, glowing faintly with inner light. "The humans saved us when no one else would," he said. "We will not hide again. Kareth will fight beside Earth." Gasps filled the chamber. It was the first open declaration of defiance in centuries. Moments later, the narrow envoy, fluid and translucent, shifted forward. "We are not warriors," she admitted, "but we will not let the predators devour us in silence. If the humans fight, then we will give what aid we can." One by one, more voices rose. Some pledged weapons, some ships, some only information. But the unthinkable had happened. For the first time in living memory, prey species were standing together. And at the center of it all was humanity. When the pact was sealed, Reyes allowed herself a rare smile. It was not victory, not yet. The predators were massing for war greater than anything the galaxy had seen in ages. But humanity was no longer alone. And as the delegates departed, carrying news of the first pact to their people, one thought echoed through every world that listened. The predators have awakened something they cannot kill. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next chapter to show the predators' countermove, their declaration of total war, or the early growing pains of this new alliance as humanity tries to unite species that have never fought before? Great, now let's move into the predators' countermove, where they react to the first pact and escalate the war. Part 11, The Predator's Oath. On the predator throne world of Gorka, the caverns of command burned with torchlight. Hundreds of overclaws gathered in the circle of Fong, their voices echoing like storms in stone. Reports of Kareth's survival, of the first pact, had reached them. The Overclaw Prime, his body scarred with the trophies of 1,000 hunts, slammed his talons into the obsidian floor. The impact silenced the chamber. "Pray have forgotten fear," he snarled, his voice rumbling through the cavern. "They dare to raise their heads, to bare their teeth. And the cause of this blasphemy is one name, humanity." A chorus of hisses and growls answered. "They boarded our flagship," another spat. "They broke fleets. They showed prey that hunters can bleed." The Prime's mandibles clicked in rage. "Then let us bleed them dry. Not with raids, not with hunts, with war." He spread his arms wide, claws gleaming. "We will burn their worlds, tear their children from their nests, leave their bones to float in the void, and when the galaxy sees their ashes, all will remember, there are no allies, no lines to hold, only prey and predators." The circle roared in assent. And so the predators swore their oath: exterminate humanity, erase every ally, crush the first pact before it could spread. Far across the stars, humanity's intelligence networks caught fragments of the vow, encrypted transmissions, intercepted war chants, glimpses of fleets mustering in numbers never before seen. On the bridge of the UES, Resolute, Captain Reyes read the reports with grim focus. "They're not raiding anymore," her lieutenant muttered. "They're mobilizing for a war of extermination." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good. That means they'll come straight for us." The lieutenant frowned. "Good." Reyes' lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Because it means we won't have to hunt them down. They'll bring the fight right to us, and when they do, we'll make damn sure the galaxy sees who really bleeds." Across allied worlds, preparations began. The Karithi forged weapons where once they had built only towers. The narrow wove energy barriers of shimmering light. Even the cautious Valari sent fleets of scouts, their long-hidden ships finally emerging from shadow. It was awkward, inefficient, chaotic. Species who had never fought now struggled to stand in formation, to learn what humans had lived with for centuries. But it was happening. For the first time in millennia, the predators would not face scattered prey. They would face prey that had learned to fight together. And far in the dark, predator fleets ignited their drives, blotting out the stars. The war of extinction had begun. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next part to dive into the early battles of this galactic war, where the Alliance struggles to hold together under pressure, or zoom in on the training and bonding between Marines and their new alien allies before the storm fully breaks? Perfect, let's show the early battles of the Galactic War, where the Alliance is tested under fire. Part 12, the line is tested. The Predators struck first. They came like firestorms across the void, their fleets a wall of blackened hulls and crimson plasma. Worlds that had hidden for centuries suddenly found themselves exposed. And this time, the Predators didn't raid for sport, they came to a race. The first blow fell on Neryl's moon farms. The shimmering domes that fed their people cracked like eggs under Predator bombardment. Fluid-bodied Neryl, who had never fought in their history, fled in tides of fear until human dropships cut through the smoke. Marines hit the ground running, rifles spitting fire into Predator advance lines. Sergeant Holt bellowed orders through the din, dragging terrified Neryl into cover. "Stay low, follow my mark, you want to live, you move when I move." The Neryl had no weapons, but under the guidance of Marines, they began using their own fluid bodies as living shields, smothering Predator sensors, jamming sightlines, improvised tactics, born of desperation, but it worked. For the first time, Predators met prey that did not scatter. They met prey that fought back together. On another front, the Valari tested their unblooded fleets. Sleek crystal ships darted into ambush patterns taught by human tacticians. Their energy beams weren't strong enough to pierce Predator shields until human warships joined them, punching holes that Valari fire widened. The comms lit up with disbelief. Valari ships confirming, kill confirmed, repeat. We destroyed a Predator cruiser. Cheers erupted across the Allied channel. It wasn't a decisive victory. The Predators pulled back only to regroup, but the impossible had happened, the line had held. In the war room aboard the UES, Resolute, maps of the stars burned with red incursions. Lieutenant Mara Vey pointed to a cluster of Allied systems. They're probing everywhere at once, looking for weakness. Captain Reyes studied the glowing fronts, her face carved in stone. Then we don't give them weakness. We show them prey can bite, every damn time. But Captain, Mara pressed, our forces are stretched thin. If one world breaks. Reyes cut her off, voice like steel. Then we don't let it break. If we fall, the first pack dies here, and I'll see hell take me before I let that happen. So the early war raged, bloody, chaotic, uncertain. For every Predator ship destroyed, an Allied outpost burned. For every Marine squad that held the line, another was lost to overwhelming numbers. But through it all, the Predators learned something that unsettled them in their bones. The more they pressed, the harder humanity fought. The harder humanity fought, the braver the prey became. And what the Predators had once called prey was slowly, painfully, becoming something else. Something united. Something dangerous. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want the next chapter to focus on a specific desperate battle, where the Alliance nearly collapses under Predator assault? Or on the personal bond between a human Marine and an alien soldier that symbolizes this new unity?